And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to Tuesday morning's Off the Ball AM. Wait till we show you the front pages of the England newspapers. I'm quite hopeful that England do well in the World Cup. I want some of those players to do well. But when you read the English media, you're like, no thanks.
Yeah, the coverage is the one thing that is the thorn in the side of any enthusiasm for England, isn't it? It's this kind of journey we go on every tournament, really, when Ireland aren't in it. And it's like, you know what, I wouldn't mind England winning this. And then suddenly you go on to hashtag tomorrow's papers today and you realise, that there's a pun on something here or just an outrageous statement that England are going to win the World Cup there. And you start to realise why we always hated this English team, really. It is kind of this spectrum that we view England through. It is through their tabloid media, which kind of skews my view of them anyway, certainly.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We'll bring you those headlines in a couple of minutes' time. We should talk a little bit about Belgium's remarkable recovery from 2-0 down last night. The Japanese team are getting shit for trying to score in the last minute of the game, when actually that's the whole point of the sport.
Yeah, they could have done it in a less naive way.
I mean, yeah, everybody gets tired.
Yeah,
it's all good. No guts, no glory. All guts, no glory.
I could see where Ronnie Whelan was coming from last night and absolutely destroying Honda in his commentary. Of course, he wasn't the sole perpetrator of their downfall, and far from it. I mean, the guy who runs from the edge of the box to try and lord it over Thibaut Courtois and not home is clearly the guy at fault. He activates four Belgian players to go on the counter-attack. The fact that Japan changed up their corner routine for the last moment of the game is also quite odd. I'm not sure why they threw it straight into the box when for the majority of the game they were taking the corners short and then trying to dislodge the Belgian defence to try and put in a ball because of the height disadvantage they were suffering. So I'm not sure why they changed things up to that extent, where they left themselves so open on the counter-attack. It's not specifically Honda's fault, of course, but as a whole, it was a systems failure by Japan. You can surely say that.
Yeah, and look, that's unfortunate, but that's how that game was going. I couldn't tell who was actually the better side in the match. And at various stages, even when it was 2-2, I thought, ooh, Japan have a really good chance of winning this.
Yeah,
still.
Yeah, it was a moment that Roberto Martinez looked to be defined by. It looked like...
Yeah, it was such a great photograph of the sideline of him going,
I was kind of sitting there thinking, we're going to be wistfully looking back on that moment when he won the FA Cup as a bizarre moment. And now you're sitting here this morning thinking, could we actually be looking wistfully back as World Cup winning manager? Like, the fact that his entire managerial reputation was put on the line by the fact that he brought on Marouane Fellaini and Nasser Chadli was ballsy. I mean, like, you've got to take your cap off to Roberto Martinez.
It's like, okay, I have nothing left.
Well, no, it was literally his decision to leave out one of his best midfielders in Rajan Angolan before the tournament began. And he's like, oh, this is my fault, isn't it, that Nasser Chadli and Marouane Fellaini are the only people I've got at my disposal. And...
So he had nothing left. He had made his own bed and he was lying in it and it was really uncomfortable.
And he got saved by that beautiful dummy from Romelu Lukaku.
Did he mean it?
Of course he meant it.
Come on.
He's not that bad. He would have swung a leg at it if he wanted.
I think that he was just trying to get his feet sorted for a back heel or something. First time I saw it, I was like, did he mean that? I mean, maybe he meant it, I don't know.
Maybe he did. Of course he meant it. Wait, what am I talking about? Of course he meant it. It was the most deliberate action from a centre forward we've seen. And
he played really badly. He missed a couple of sitters, and so I'm not letting him out of jail for a dummy.
It was a dummy that may have come as a result of low confidence. I'll give you that much. He probably felt that I'm not going to score this. I've got to do something that's not kicking the football, and letting it roll through my legs is probably the best option. And it was a correct course of action. It was an amazing finish.
It worked out for him.
Yeah, poor Japan. Poor Japan. 9-1 going into yesterday's game. It was just sickening seeing them kind of.
Did you back Japan?
No, I didn't. It's just an observation that in a two-horse race there were such humongous outsiders.
Yeah.
And at this point, is it the moment where we've seen the vulnerabilities that Belgium have in front of them, or is it the moment where Belgium are actually galvanised? I'm not sure if it actually matters. I think they're waking up this morning thinking, phew.
Yeah, but I don't think Hazard played particularly well. He played okay in bits in the first half. I didn't see De Bruyne do very much at all.
But he's playing in the wrong position, isn't he?
So he says, but maybe he is, right? He is such a good footballer, you would assume that he'd be able to influence the game a bit more. That whole notion, will they get better as the tournament progresses? We haven't really seen too many teams grow into the tournament. It seems Well, teams tend to get more and more exhausted as the tournament goes on, and they get worse and worse, with the possible exception at this point of Brazil.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Brazil are the only exception really to that. France as well, if we believe what we saw on Saturday, despite the fact that Argentina were quite bad. I think it's great to look at this Belgium team just 24 hours out from Spain's elimination from the tournament, because Belgium had the one very simple thing that Spain didn't, which was a plan B. It may have come in the guise of Marouane Fellaini, but it was still a different option. It wasn't Sergio Ramos passing the ball 150 times. It was something else, something different. Throw the ball into the mixer. And although at times yesterday when Fellaini came on, you just saw him wandering around on the right-hand touchline. It's like, get into the box. What are you doing? He's like trying to be this whiz kid of a winger or something.
He's arriving late.
That's what he was trying to do. And yeah, it paid dividends for them.
That side of the draw is lit. It's Uruguay against France and Brazil against Belgium, and that's going to be, one of those going to be the final. That's like great quarterfinals, a brilliant semi no matter who comes through, and an excellent finalist. And then the other side of the draw is like, wow.
Russia.
I mean, what the hell?
It's going to be Russia.
Sweden, Switzerland, Colombia, and Russia.
England, Croatia.
We'll see.
Croatia are actually probably the team that are going to...
I mean, yeah, except they were crap against Denmark, I thought.
Terrible, but Denmark kind of
Bring everybody
suffocated
down to
them.
their own level.
Yeah, they brought us down to their level as well. That's why we lost 5-1.
Yeah.
That's the only reason we lost. We were far better than Denmark.
I mean, if only James McLean had sucked that in, it'd be us against Russia now. That's how it works.
It would be, and you know what? You can just picture us and the Russian fans in this christening of jubilation in wherever this game is on, probably the Luzhniki or somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure we would have bonded.
Like bonded miraculously, like John Duggan showing us all the possibilities that could have been every other Irish fan. Him and his new Russian friends.
We'll be over to JD and his new Russian friends in just a little while, but now we are going to take you through the newspapers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
Okay, so we're going to start with our newspapers. We'll bring in the English front pages and the back pages in a couple of minutes' time. As you would expect, the English back page. I mean, part of it's fine, right? Part of it's absolutely fine, but then somebody always has to go too far, and it's always the Sun. So let's bring you through the Irish newspapers first this morning. I'm going to start with the Irish Independent. Hurling fixture chaos threat. This is a bit of speculation here from the Irish Indo this morning. If the Leinster final replay ends in a draw after extra time and after the extra period of extra time, then there'll be fixture chaos. Which is like, I mean, fair enough.
It would take 2 10-minute periods and then 2 5-minute periods for this story to manifest itself.
Yeah.
It does kind of remind us, though, of the fact that fixture chaos could be avoided by actual definition of closing out fixtures on the day.
Yeah.
Or particularly on day 2, at the very least.
Yeah. Well, on day 1, right?
Day 1 would be better.
But I don't think there should be a replay.
But I can see why people would say the free-taking competition isn't the way to decide a Leinster title.
Why not? Leinster title nowhere near as important now as like what's coming next.
It would. I would say that it is quite important. I would say the 2 hurling provinces are very important at the moment.
And so you happen to win it on freeze. You lost it on freeze.
It will be drama for all of us, and
then there'd be no fixture chaos.
I would enjoy it, and there would be no fixture chaos. It's true, but there would be no fixture chaos as well if they got it sorted after the second day out. And after the second day, it should be enough is enough. We can't have a third meeting of these teams. We just have to end it after day 2. It's the only sport where this happens.
A fourth meeting of these teams, obviously, because they've already played in the...
Well, you know what I mean.
But actually, I think it's a serious thing. It's like, okay, play again. We've got to play again. So it's a trilogy now already before you actually get out of Leinster.
And what's the times 4 version of a trilogy? Quadrilogy. It could potentially come on down the line as well, and you've got the league meeting and all that sort of stuff. It's just familiarity after familiarity, and just the same 2 teams going at it again and again and again is what the new hurling format has kind of thrown up. But it's great. I mean, like I'd rather watch Kilkenny play Galway 10 times a season than watch Kilkenny trounce, I don't know, Carlow once a season, you know? Although that's probably going to happen next year after what happened in the Joe McDonagh Cup at the weekend. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The Examiner next. Picture of Frank Murphy at the top of the front page of the Examiner, because the process of replacing Frank Murphy in Cork GAA after 40-something years is underway, which is a remarkable achievement for any individual. And then back from the brink, obviously, Chadley breaks Japan hearts as Belgium complete sensational comeback to set up Brazil showdown. The bottom stories there. Player power doesn't have to be a blight on the GAA. It's Mike Quirk column today. Big decisions loom for divided Spain after the World Cup exit, and Donegal's World Cup Ballyliffin basks in golf's global limelight for the Irish Open. The golf and the weather in Ballyliffin. So many Irish Opens have been just shit because the weather's been awful, and all of a sudden Donegal is going to be this beautiful shimmering countryside. It's going to look like it's from, California or something.
Yeah, it's like the first time ever, I would imagine, that the Irish Open has been posed with the problem, will the greens actually look green or will they be brown? I would never be able to recall a situation where the Irish Open has ever been posed with that problem.
Sometimes there'd be footage of an Irish Open in in Royal Dublin, I think it was, when John O'Leary won. That's
black and white pictures.
Well, it's like it's such good weather. It's burnt brown, and but it could have been. It's the 70s, I think.
That's just crappy TV footage where everything looked brown in those days, sure. Everything. The weather looks so much better. That was just a sepia tint on the footage.
Interesting piece about Mike Quirk about how the Mayo footballers actually use player power themselves to become a unified force, and because they were a unified force, they were really good over the years, and that only a team who were as brave as Mayo were to get rid of Holmes and Kennelly could actually have been as brilliant as they were on the field of play as often as they were. And he's saying that Kildare needed or channel that a little bit at the weekend, and that rather than fearing player power, the team should actually be actively trying to convince players to seize power and be a unified force. But obviously,
well, what was your reaction? Like you weren't in yesterday. You didn't have a chance to gloat and to stare down the barrel of the lens and say,
I know. There's no gloating. Until I am in the same room as Nathan Murphy, there'll be no gloating.
We should do like a Kildare versus Mayo podcast. You and Joe versus Nathan and Kevin, and just a constant stream of verbal abuse directed at Nathan and Kevin. And they don't say a word and they just leave afterwards, and that's it.
We can actually do that without them. We just have cardboard cutouts of them.
It would work just as well. Did you feel any sort of kind of a wry sense of told you so after the weekend?
Oh no, honestly, even with all the stuff in the build-up, it was hard to see a way that Kildare were going to play the way that they did after that pressure, because they haven't put a performance in it. I literally think that the last time they played that well was when they won the Leinster title in at the start of this millennium, and it was amazing. It was like the best they've ever played in 2 decades. From the league campaign, it didn't really look like they were going to be able to do that. So,
and was your tweet after the match just kind of here's a consolation prize for Mayo sort of thing? Was it just sort of rush of blood to the head?
No.
Here's your tweet. The Mayo footballers are still the greatest story in Irish sport this decade. They deserve more than they've got, but they've earned respect from everyone.
Yeah, I stand over every part of that. They deserve more than they got. You don't always get what you deserve in life. You get what you negotiate. And give me a better, more compelling story than the story of the Mayo footballers of the last 6-7 years.
To be honest with you, I actually kind of agree with you to a certain extent. It has been... It's been an amazing story. And I always say that the best stories don't have a happy ending. They don't have this sort of...
No good stories have a happy ending.
That's what I'm saying.
Fairy stories have a happy ending.
That's what I'm saying. It's like there's no Hollywood script here. This is real. This is authentic. This is, as Jim McGuinness is saying in the Irish Times today, the Buffalo Bills of our generation.
Well, so he's talking about the Four Falls Buffalo, that documentary series from the 30 for 30, where they go through each of the 4 seasons that the Bills end up reaching the Super Bowl, and they lose all of them. The first one that they lose is the closest. They've got a kick to win it, and the kicker, I don't know if you've seen this, have you? The Four Falls Buffalo, it's brilliant. So the kicker's literally still crying about when that comes up, and they go back and show you the footage of him addressing the icy crowd that have shown up to celebrate the team, thinking, oh, this is okay, we're going to get over the line next year. And he's like, yeah, we'll definitely get back next year. It never does. Never happens. It just never happens. But that is definitely one of the better 30 for 30s. The stories where documentaries are made about winning teams, they're grand. Sometimes they're quite good. Some of the America's games are really good, but they're just really history lessons. Then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Oh, we had a bit of a setback here, but we recovered because we're a good team, and we went on to, the rugby team are a better story. Conquerors of New Zealand was the one that somebody tweeted like, yeah, great, they beat New Zealand, and like the Irish rugby team are a brilliant story, and the Dublin footballers are a brilliant story, and the Kilkenny hurlers in this decade are an interesting story, although I would argue the previous decade was actually them at their peak and when they had all their best players, and we're starting to learn that they were a great story as well. But none of them have everything that Mayo has, which is that loss, and that like the odds are stacked against them because of what happens in the county, the fact that so many people, so many towns absolutely destroyed by emigration, the fact that half the team lives in Dublin and they get a bus back and forth across the summer, like getting to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and then getting up for work the next day at 7 o'clock, and they get within a point, a replay, a point, and it's only ever the All-Ireland champions who beat them. It is an unbelievable story, and they keep coming back.
No, it is, and like I'm actually thankful that Jim brought up the Bills reference there, because I wonder, will that be how we view Mayo in 10, 20 years? This Mayo team, if they don't return a win in All-Ireland, will we view them as kind of the whipping boys? Because that's how I would view that Bills team. I mean, when we were talking about the Bills earlier this year, it's like, oh, the Bills are back. Remember how bad they were in the 90s, when in actual fact, they were amazing. They won 4 AFC championships in a row. This Mayo team is amazing. And maybe because of the fact that they didn't win All Irelands, and this sense of unluckiness will become a sense of they were a bad team, might fester over time. I hope that's not the case, because that's not the truth.
Yeah, well, the Bills got hammered in 3 Super Bowls, I think. And those massive defeats are things ultimately that you remember, as opposed to that one where all you have to do is kick it's like, all you have to do is kick that free.
Well, it was 47 metres out.
Yeah, makeable. Pretty makeable. Would have made it. Should have made it.
Yeah, like I was wondering, was Jim McGuinness actually going to mention Cillian O'Connor there at that point? And thankfully he doesn't twist the knife to that extent. But it's it's cathartic reading for any Mayo fan this morning, for sure, McGuinness's column.
Yeah, and a bunch of people have been saying fairly similar stuff over the last couple of days. So I was amazed at how angry the Dublin fans got. Like, absolutely livid with that tweet.
Yeah, like there was no suggestion that they're a better team. The suggestion was that they're a better story, which I think unquestionably they are. There's no question that they're a better story than... Like, there is definitely more 30 for 30 potential in Mayo than there is in Dublin. Well, no question about that.
I was thinking about it. If you were to do it, it would take 3.5, 4 hours to do justice to it. If you were to do the Dub story, it would be Dublin, loads of great resources and great footballers. Pat Gilroy comes in, fixes their defence, leaves, Jim Gavin fixes their attack. Here's a few interviews, a minor falling out with their star player. They survive by bringing in like the best young footballer in the country, and away we go.
It would need to be major on the intellectual insights we get, as in Jim Gavin would need to spill his heart out, Bernard Dunn would need to reveal everything, Brian Cullen would need to reveal everything, all their statsmen, Mark Ingle on the basketball side of things. It would need to be a very slick operation of a documentary. It would need to be an intellectual piece of work, basically. It wouldn't be an emotional piece of work that the Mayo one is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it'd be like a long novel written with 800 pages, perfectly crafted sentences, and at the end of it you go, oh, okay, yeah, I feel like I understand that thing a bit more. Whereas the Mayo one, you'd be bleeding after it going, Jesus Christ, why couldn't I just get it done?
Yeah, like you could get David Fincher to direct the Dublin one and he'd make a pretty good job of it. Whereas with the Mayo one, he could give it to me and the camcorder, and I'd do a pretty good job of it, you know.
Adrian Bain says, hold on a second, Scott Norwood was given an extended ovation in Buffalo at the homecoming, and Toy Story 3 has a happy ending. You can't argue with that logic. Toy Story 3, the ending. Woody gets reunited. Oh, he gets onto another child, right? He just gets handed down. But like ultimately, that's not a good... like that kid is going to reject Woody the same way Andy did at some point, right? That's how it goes. Kids reject toys, they move on. Sean McCready. We'll leave the football ones for now. Thomas O'Connell says, I was really looking forward to Jer's outpouring of emotion on the show this morning. Damn it, anyway. Did he make it onto the pitch after the game? Not since 2000 in Croke Park have I seen joy like it. Yeah, 2000. That was my memory of that. No, I didn't make it onto the field. I didn't get a ticket for the game. Adrian Bain says, oh, I'd already done that one. Sorry about that. Yeah. And I don't know. I feel really sorry for the Mayo footballers. They don't want your sympathy. They don't care about it. And I also don't think that they're completely finished.
No, neither do I. I think that we would not be having this conversation had Mayo got knocked out later in the championship, which would have happened anyway. They would not have made an All-Ireland final even if they'd got past Kildare. They would have got knocked out at some point because of the two ginormous injuries they suffered in midfield, which, as Anthony Moyles put it on yesterday's show, resulted in a situation where you were robbing Peter to pay Paul. You were taking Diarmuid O'Connor out of a different line of the pitch, and despite how unbelievably good he was on Saturday, and it is now his new position.
Yeah, so there you go. I'm not sure about...
Like, it still is just a thinning of your talent across the starting 15 and across the bench players that are coming on. So,
can Kildare do it again? Can they beat Fermanagh playing like that?
Of course they can. Of course they can beat Fermanagh.
Can they just do it again? Can they beat Kerry down in Killarney?
Well, that would be something for Cian O'Neill. They're beaming from ear to ear if he went down to Kerry and beat them.
Think of the knives that will be out for Cian O'Neill if Kildare make it through.
He'll pick up the phone and is like, "Why, yes, Sunday again, producer. I will sit in the same studio as Tommaso O'Shea to talk about my team's 213 to 112 win against Kerry this afternoon in Killarney."
Okay, so next, Times Ireland. What have we got here for you? We have the Cork are still hungry after Munster title. This is Fraggy Murphy, who is speaking with Gary Doyle, and who a little bit later on is going to be speaking with us right here on Off the Ball AM, saying that they're still hungry after the Munster title. And of course, I think they might actually now be the new favourites after that quality of performance. Like, their forwards turned it on and their defence got tight. And suddenly it's like, ooh, and they have confidence. Now, the 4-week break is going to be really interesting to see how they handle that and what way they manage to make sure that they're still as sharp as they were in that game. But and then Killian Buckley saying that they don't bother with critics on the back of that. So that's little Kenny Hurlers, who also, like a zombie, not dead, and feel empowered by the fact that they're not dead. Wexford drills down to avert water crisis. Wexford Racetrack taking the unusual precautions of drilling their own well to make sure that there's water this weekend. Or maybe not that unusual, in fairness.
On the back page of the Herald this morning, it's Hammers fitness boost. Colombian ace winning battle to face off against Southgate's men. And you've got jubilant pictures there of Nasser Chadli celebrating with Romelu Lukaku after their win last night. It was 3-2 for Belgium. It was an absolutely unbelievable result against Japan. Poor Japan, losing in such dramatic circumstances. I still blame Honda and his teammates to a certain extent. The back page of the Irish Daily Mail goes with this as well. A great escape. Martinez hails Belgians, but it's cruel on Japan. And Kildare given green light to host Tribesmen, which is Mick Clifford's piece here, that Kildare, if they book a place in the Super 8s with a win against Fermanagh this weekend, they will be allowed to play Galway in St. Conleth's Park on the bank holiday weekend. The weekend, 2 weekends before that, the 21st, 22nd of July. On the back page of the Sun this morning, this is the Irish Sun. Boss wants the goods, keep calm and harry on. And GA to Burst Buble. This is the John Horan story from yesterday, which we brought you up to speed on OTB AM yesterday. It's he's saying that he wants Croke Park to be kept exclusively for GEA events during July and August. So no more Michael Bublé, no more Navy against Notre Dame, no more nothing except for Gaelic games and the GEA in Croke Park in July and August. If John Horan gets his way, that'll be an interesting one to see if that one goes to Congress. On the back page of the Irish Daily Star, it's pathetic. O'Neill slams Neymar in the wake of, it's hard to put it better than that. It was pathetic. It was embarrassing after another excellent performance from Neymar growing into the tournament. As you said, the reaction to Miguel Leon's admitted stamp on his ankle yesterday was nothing short of pathetic. That's exactly how I would sum it up as well.
How would, if someone stamped on your ankle, how would you?
Well, I wouldn't roll for a little while, and I wouldn't negotiate my way around one of the sideline people, aka a coach, to go and roll a little bit more.
You probably would.
I probably wouldn't.
Should we try this out?
Yes, I would. I would probably be static in a sense of pain. That's how people react to pain.
I mean, yeah, sometimes. I'm not defending it.
Maybe he's got a very low threshold for pain. Maybe he just feels very brief periods of excruciating agony, and that's just the way he's made up. It's just a genetic freak, kind of like Chris Froome. Yeah, he's just a genetic freak, but he's just a genetic freak when it comes to pain.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Chris Froome yet. We will a little bit later on the show.
Nay shame, says the back of the Mirror. Angry Mexico boss slams Brazilian aces theatrics. And win and you get a super home tie, says GA President John Horan. That's a promise to Kildare that they will be able to play in St Conleth's again if they make it to the Super 8s. Let's have a look at some of the UK papers. This is the front page of The Sun. They've gone too far, ladies and gentlemen. They've gone way too far. This is as Three Lions face nation that gave world Shakira, great coffee and other stuff. We say, go Kane. What can you even say about that?
The Sun, I don't know. It's grim.
Do English people wake up this morning and think to themselves, yeah, 1966 all over again after reading that headline? Do they think, let's emulate the Charltons, let's emulate the greats here, and let's go forth and conquer? Is that what they think after they read a headline like that?
Or I want a line of cocaine. Is that what they want?
Maybe they do. You know, like. Maybe the Sun know the English people better than we do.
Yeah, you know, it's like because the drug trade has really been good for Colombia, and it's great that you can, you know, go you've got drug trade which completely ruined your country and put you in the grip of horrible criminals for decades and decades and decades.
Let's have a look at the back page of the Daily Mail in the UK this morning. Penalties. We've got the bottle. So are they saying that it's going to be Trippier, Henderson, Lingard and Young and Kane?
Yeah, Ashley Young obviously missed one in 2012 in the Euros against Italy.
Yeah, it's in case it's high behind your sofa time tonight. Like if it goes to penalties, it's hard not for it's like I was listening to the Sunday paper review on Sunday, and they were talking about a piece. I'm not sure was it in the Sunday Times, where Gareth Southgate showed his players all these instances of previous failures by England at the World Cup, which is fine and well. I can see what he's trying to do. It's like you can never be that bad. Like, I mean, we've had it bad. You will have to do something special to be as rubbish as these guys. But if you are stepping up to take a penalty, like you've been reminded of this fact, you're like, I'm not supposed to put this ball in the back of the net. There is an inferiority complex created by that immediately. Let's have a look at the front page of the Mirror this morning, the UK Mirror, that is. Now write your own history, boys. Southgate's rallying cry. The back page of the Mirror then. It's time to deliver. Southgate tells his Lions that talk is cheap. Now he must end 12 years of knockout pain. We'll move on to the back page of the Daily Express. Let's party. Southgate offers his men to put on a carnival for the nation tonight. I wonder, if they do lose, will he come out and say, well, you know what, we put on a great show. We played some exciting football. There was a carnival back home, and it doesn't matter that we got knocked out. The back page of the Star then, the UK Star. History, boys. Southgate tells Lions to seize the moment. That seems to be doing the rounds a good bit. The back page of the London Times then goes with this way to the last 8, and you've also got that Froome story there, which we'll come back to later on, and then another couple of broadsheets. The Telegraph goes with opportunity of a lifetime. Southgate tells team to deliver as nation dreams of World Cup glory. And then finally, The Guardian this morning is write your own stories. Southgate tells players to seize the moment. Carpe diem indeed, says Gareth Southgate.
Not completely over the top from anybody except the Sun. It's literally only the Sun who you kind of, when you think about it, it's like a chance to get into a World Cup quarterfinals on the side of a draw is pretty good against a Colombia side who are good, but like might not have their best player playing for them.
I'm not going to lie,
you should get excited.
Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed by the carousel of back pages we showed there. It's not outrageous. Tomorrow morning, though, if they win, we can expect a different story. The Sun are the only ones who've like, hold my beer, everyone, I'm going to do something mental.
Very quickly to the European back pages. Marca have a story here about Cristiano potentially going to Italy next year, and they say that they've got some details on a contract clause that he has that would allow Juve to sign him for 120 million, and Juve are the club that are being linked with Cristiano. He has the guarantee of Real over a great discount in his release clause, apparently, which obviously comes hot on the heels of Real Madrid last night, the attention-seeking clowns denying a report that they have agreed a deal to buy out Neymar's release clause of 237.5 million or whatever it is, or 627 million or 9 billion, whatever that figure is that was made up. So
it would complete their evolution into a team of supervillains if they manage to sign Neymar, and I hope they do it.
Yeah, I actually do as well. I kind of feel like after the way that they completely sabotaged Spain's World Cup, that now the whole world can unify finally behind a hatred of Real Madrid as opposed to oh, actually, it's kind of good that they have all these superstar players and we really like watching them all play together. It's like, no, that's bad. That is evil.
It wouldn't be begrudging respect, it'd just be pure hatred.
The Coro l'équipe on diable, which roughly translates as furious or boisterous. Froome respire très fort. Froome breathes very strongly is the headline on that one as well. So we'll talk about Froome a little bit later on. John Duggan, good morning to you.
Jerry and Owen, how are you doing?
Very well. You're having the time of your life?
Yeah, I put up a tweet about, I don't know if you've ever seen Bart and Milhouse when they go crazy on the squishies in The Simpsons.
Yes.
That's what the World Cup signifies to me. It's Bart Simpson going crazy on that squishy, that moment when he has the sip of the squishy for the first time and goes absolutely mad. And that's the feeling I'm getting every single second I'm out here in Moscow and elsewhere in Russia. Even though I'm not really displaying that right now outwardly, but internally, I can guarantee you that's how I'm feeling.
Right, that's class. And it can only have been helped by the fact that Russia are still alive, and your footage from the streets of Moscow yesterday, pretty remarkable as well.
Yes, and I spoke to a lady who's actually from here, and she said that, and she's young, she's in her early 20s, and she said she's never seen celebrations like it. So that just goes to show you. I was going through it yesterday. I was trying to think of moments in Russian history. Yuri Gagarin, 1980 Olympics, maybe the fall of communism, but I can't really think of moments when the spotlight of the whole world in an open way is on Russia and Moscow celebrating this way. And I think it'll do huge wonders if they can capitalize on it and build on it. It's one of those things. I remember 1990, I was 11. And after crying on the sheepskin rug when David O'Leary dispatched the penalty against Romania, I just remember, though, that time, looking at the news footage and everything as a young lad, the streets of O'Connell Street completely and utterly empty. And then we had the parties, the Walkinstown roundabout and everything. But I suppose it's such a beautiful thing to imagine that you're expected to lose with grace. Vladimir Putin doesn't even turn up. Medvedev turned up. And then you win. You win with guts. You win with the fact that the other team implodes. You win on penalties. Your goalkeeping hero Akinfeev with paying homage to Lev Yashin. And then what do we all decide to do? We all just decide to just get out on the streets and start driving and start beeping our horns and then start hanging out of cars. It's just, I remember, when you're a young lad, you're thinking, okay, well, can I put my head out the window of a car or out the window of a train? And you kind of peek your head out the window. But everybody was actually, it's like something out of the Dukes of Hazzard. They were hanging out the cars, sitting on the sides of the cars at high speed. And the beeping just would not stop. And yesterday was very sedate and was very kind of calm after the storm. But Sochi will be I won't be here on Saturday because I'll be in Samara, but it'll be some party in Moscow on Saturday, the fan fest and everything, when they play Croatia.
Yeah, Sochi very hot. Obviously, the Croatians have apparently started to arrive. The Croatians are there to try and acclimatise to the heat a couple of days in advance. And if you're Russia, you don't fear Croatia at this point of the tournament.
You don't know. You're playing. It's almost like you're playing with house money now. You're in bonus territory. You're going home with a profit. You're playing with house money, and even if you lose the next time, you're not going to have a bad night at the casino. You're going to have a great night at the casino, and you're going to remember how good it was. So they're in bonus territory. Croatia's midfield and a more direct style with Mandzukic up front, I think they're going to cause Russia problems. I think anybody can make that argument, but the beauty and unpredictability of sport is we just don't know. We cannot say with 100% certainty, lads, that Croatia will win on Saturday. That is the great thing about this World Cup. Once again, epitomised by Japan and Belgium yesterday, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, some of these last 16 games you figured might be a bit one-sided or not be great. And okay, so the Croatia-Denmark game wasn't great, but ultimately there's unbelievable drama in extra time and then in the penalties. I mean, I think the Belgium-Japan game will rank as one of those all-time World Cup games because a team goes 2-0 up and loses, and it just happens so rarely. also when it's a team like Japan, who again didn't even expect, or we certainly didn't expect them to get out of the group.
1970 was the last time it happened in a World Cup. That's a long time ago when England played West Germany and lost their world title. I thought Belgium were arrogant. I think that in the first half they were almost expecting to get the goal. That didn't happen, and then Inui scoring that beautiful goal to put Japan 2-0 up, and you're thinking Japan actually play good football, and I was writing them off in a pretty damning way, and it was obviously coming back to haunt my mind. But I just think they played football, but I just thought they were a little bit naive. The goalkeeper was Kawashima was flapping around for that goal that let Vertonghen score back into it. And then Fellaini was a good introduction, brought a bit of physical presence to Belgium, scored that header, made it 2-2. And Japan were still going for it at the end, Kesuke Honda, but got caught on the break, and both substitutions scored. To be fair to Martinez, both players that came on scored. And a beautiful dummy from Lukaku to set up Nasser Chadli, who's hardly played any football at West Brom all season. So Chadli and Fellaini, but Kevin De Bruyne had a quiet game. I wonder about their 3-5-2. I wonder, is it that effective? I'd love to see De Bruyne further up the pitch. I don't know if the fullbacks are making any positive impact, and I felt at times Japan had them down the flanks, and I suppose Belgium have to improve, and I think that being the underdog will favour them against Brazil, but you have to admire the way Brazil, we're forgetting about the Neymar antics for a second, you have to admire the way Brazil within themselves defeated Mexico and saw them off pretty comfortably yesterday in Samara, where once again I think heat is an issue here. Actually, De Bruyne looks really affected by the heat. I think heat is an issue here that's probably been a little bit understated. Won't be an issue for Colombia and England today, but places like Samara, places like Sochi, places like Rostov, I think heat is a factor here.
Just on the Japan concession of the goal that made it 3-2 to Belgium, like, it would be patronising to suggest that Japan didn't mess up really badly there, didn't it? Like, if it was any other team, we'd be sitting here saying that it is an absolute disgrace the way they allowed them to be countered in such a fashion. Like, and I'm not singling out Honda here, I'm just saying that it was a full systems failure by Japan, and like, as I say at the start, it would be patronising to suggest that it wasn't a hugely significant mess up by everybody in a Japanese jersey last night.
Well, first of all, there seems to be a bit of sympathy for plucky Japan. There shouldn't be after the Poland game when they were playing it around, hoping to go through on a better disciplinary record than Senegal. So I don't have any sympathy for them. You play to win. You play in the spirit of the game, and they were naive. I said on Twitter that they were naive. People are going, what did you expect them not to go for it? No, you expect them at 2-0 up to alter their play a little bit, knowing that Belgium are going to come at them and maybe sit back a bit and not play at trying to break at the pace they were trying to break at. They were completely exposed. I mean, De Bruyne ran 60 yards. Meunier was completely on his own down the right hand side, and then they're queuing up to finish it, and Chadli did finish it. So yeah, it was a complete malfunction, a systems failure, and naivety on Japan's part, who have never reached a quarter final at the World Cup, and I think that showed. So this plucky stuff, I'm not buying it. This is the big leagues now. We're in the big leagues, and if England go out in penalties tonight, I won't be feeling sorry for plucky England.
Let's talk about Brazil and Mexico. The tournament now feels like we're on the verge of it being Neymar's World Cup. That, like most World Cups, tend to become ultimately identified with a single individual if that individual rises to the occasion. Neymar's doing that in a couple of different ways, some of it good and some of it bad.
Yes, and there'll be people who might say that Mbappe, but I might have to say in that. But I'm hoping that Brazil, are my team, so I'm hoping that they will do it. Mexico in the early stages were playing the kind of zip that they played against Germany, but they're dealing with a much more disciplined and organised team. And I think one of the functions of Brazil in this World Cup so far has been a 1994 style discipline and defensive solidity and organisation, which is very promising to see. Although Casemiro now will be banned for the quarter-final, he's got a second yellow card. You'd expect Fernandinho to come in. Fullbacks were a little bit exposed at times, but when I watched the Mexico-Germany game, I felt that Mexico, despite going ahead with Lozano, lacked a bit of composure. And despite the zip and the possession they had, they didn't really create that many chances. And once Brazil got into that gear. Neymar, for the first goal, just created the space for William with that beautiful back heel, finished the move. And then Brazil were content to sit back and then hit them on the break for the second goal. And I think Brazil have been playing within themselves since the kind of tricky opener against Switzerland. And I don't think Belgium can beat Brazil and France. They might beat Brazil. They could beat maybe one of them. I can't see them beating both of them. And I'd be confident that Brazil will be able to flourish. I'm a bit more relaxed than everybody else about Neymar's antics. I find it a bit humorous more. So I'm more amused than outraged, I would have to say. It's almost like you go fishing for the first time. I've never gone fishing, but if you imagine you go fishing and it's not like it's like Donald Trump here, and you catch an electric eel, and it's that's almost like what I saw when I saw Neymar just riding around. I said, "This is what's happened to Neymar." I kind of caught it late. I didn't realize what had happened, and he's just riding around like something in the River Shannon. So it was I just found it funny actually, but the outrage is almost making me laugh as well, because you have all the memes going around now of Neymar riding around the world and all that kind of stuff, which I got on WhatsApp last night. But I wonder, is it a bit tactical? I wonder, are they trying to do this to put it in the minds of referees to just not protect him, but
I mean, in fairness, someone did break his back literally in the last tournament, where there was a fairly laissez-faire attitude towards heavy tackles in the group stages, and it was brilliant. It led to a World Cup where you felt like the game was being allowed to flow, but then somebody literally broke Neymar's back and Brazil crashed out of the tournament. So if you're Brazil and you're trying to come up with some way to protect your best assets, then maybe this type of histrionics is exactly what you're going to do.
I think there might be a bit of method in the madness. Here. Neymar, I think he came out and said that people are just trying to undermine him by what they're saying. And Mark Clattenburg, I was watching ITV's coverage, and Mark Clattenburg, who was watching it, said it was a red card, that he was trod upon. So there can be a little bit of boy cried wolf about Neymar, but he's coming through the World Cup, even though he was the most foul player, I think, in the first two matches. I think he's coming through the World Cup pretty unscathed. I suppose what would be interesting to see with Brazil now, does Firmino get in the team? Came on and scored. Jesus hasn't really caught it yet. But I think the thing about Brazil is it's not about Neymar and the world on his shoulders as it was 4 years ago. There are other players in the team now, like Coutinho, like Willian, like Jesus, if and when it happens for him. And a very good solid defence, Silva and Miranda leading that are all punching above, and that will give Brazilian supporters a lot of confidence going forward that they can take Belgium. But Belgium will surely be better than they were last night. Surely.
Just one last point on Neymar, John. Like, maybe there's just a possibility that he loves this. Maybe he just loves play acting. Maybe he loves riding around on the ground. He just needs to get it out of his system at certain intervals in the game. Kind of like Granit Xhaka feels a need to fire a ball 40 yards over the bar from 40 yards away from the goal at a couple of intervals during the game. Maybe he's just addicted to this, and he just loves the feeling of riding around on the ground and loves the feeling that he's going to exact some sort of justice on a person who may or may not have trodden his ankle.
There is an indulgence. There is a narcissistic streak, obviously, there, and it's funny, when Firmino scored, he went over to Neymar, and the team went over to Neymar like Neymar had scored.
Yeah.
So there's even in the presser, Chichi was extolling the virtues of Neymar, and then might throw in a little bit of a rub. Just maybe you don't want to be doing the diving or the histrionics, but that's like a tiny coat of paint. They know how good he is, and as I said, and I've said after watching him close up against Serbia, and I said this guy is out of this world. He's an out of this world footballer. He is a class footballer to watch up close. It is an absolute gift to watch someone like Neymar play football, and that is the difference at the World Cup. Only France really are the only other team that I've seen as well organised and as decent as Croatia are. France are the only other team that have that extra level that they can go to in the tournament, and that's why I think Brazil and France, if they do meet in the semi-final, could be the real final. Yeah,
it could be a real classic as well. I mean, Brazil France, you think of the game in '86, that's one of my first World Cup memories. just the colour of the footage from Mexico. The two shirts were absolutely perfect. It's Platini against Cork. It's sensational stuff, and if we get one more of those, it'd be great as well. Tommy has reminded us here of the Mauricio Pochettino comments from earlier in the season. Football is about trying to trick your opponent, yes or no? Tactic, what does tactic mean? When you do tactics, it's to try and trick the opponent. You play in the right, but you finish in the left. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we all congratulate the player when he tricks the referee like this. That is the football that I was in love with when I was a child. Yes, in Argentina, but in England too. You believe that in England you were honest and always perfect.
No. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. The process of trying to trick the referee is rampant in the World Cup. There is a reason why we're singling out Neymar, and that is due to the fact that when he got his ankle trod upon yesterday, he rolled around for a while and he saw that there was an assistant manager in his way, so he moved his body out of the way and started rolling around again. It is hilarity. It is pure comic gold. It is, and as John said, the indulgence by Chiche and his teammates, oh God, is Neymar happy over there? The guilt from Roberto Firmino when he scored yesterday was tangible, and like maybe referees need to start treating Neymar like you treat a baby from 4 to 6 months. Just let him cry it out. Just, don't listen to the intercom. Turn the intercom off. Let him roll around and cry all he wants, and maybe he'll stop. Maybe that's the best way, because it is a blight on the game. He can dive all he wants. It is the histrionics after that. That is the difference here. It's not the process of tricking the referee. It is the pointless nature of what he does after that, because essentially Mexico would have suffered a red card yesterday had he not writhed around in pain. Well, there would have been more of a likelihood of it anyway, I feel.
Well, just on that, the referee for the Uruguay-Portugal game was brilliant in that. He ignored all of that. He's a 34-year-old Mexican, young referee, just said, lads, just get on with it. I'm not interested in your play acting. And it made for quite an edgy but a really free-flowing game. And I think the players knew, it's almost like a hurling final. I always thought the hurling final last year was beautifully refereed. Can't remember the Tipperary man's name who did it off the top of my head, Galway against Waterford. But he just let it flow. Uruguay, Portugal, just let it flow. And I think sometimes if you get involved early doors, flashing cards, and to be fair to the referees, I think they've been quite lenient to the World Cup so far, and they have let it flow. But if you can just ignore it, then I think the players will actually, if you don't show the baby attention, then, or the child attention, then they just get on with it. And then I think that might be the lesson that needs to be learned going forward.
Fergal Horgan was the referee.
That's right, yeah.
Tommy's also suggesting that it's a bit like Rivaldo in the World Cup in 2002 against Turkey, which leads to a conflagration and several players getting red cards when he gets hit on the knee with the ball and like he's been shot in the head back and to the left.
There's a difference there, as in Rivaldo was successful.
Oh, totally, yeah, it worked out perfectly.
Whereas Neymar, his play acting has led to a lack of success. In fact, it's gone the other way. Mexico.
Because now they have VAR. It's like, ultimately, no one's going to get sent off for doing something that they don't deserve to get sent off. So it's not almost like he doesn't understand the technology. John, we're going to let you go. One last question for you. Who's going to win the game between England and Colombia tonight, and what way will England find to lose it?
I'm going, lads. So I'll be reporting back in tomorrow morning from the Spartak Stadium, which is a great stadium. It'll be a great atmosphere there. I've heard that the English fans are not wearing any shirts. They want to keep a low profile. So I'm sure they'll turn up outside the metro. It's actually outside of the metro station, the stadium. So I'm looking forward to it. Met a Colombian fan yesterday in this full tracksuit, head to toe, which is quite funny because I was wearing a Russian army cap and he thought I was Russian and he wanted to take a photo with me. That was funny, and he was coming over and I was just saying, I'm Irish, mate, and he just goes, Colombia mañana. So that was a funny moment, but I think England are going to do it. I think James is not fully fit. I think that's a big thing. Quintero, Cuadrado, obviously these are dangerous players. Falcao will have a point to prove after flopping in the Premier League after that knee injury he suffered. But I think England, with that high press and the way they played in the first two games, and Harry Kane, I think they can cause Colombia problems. Can't see England going out in penalties tonight.
Whether he's
an evil genius.
Or an evil genius where it'll get to the point where he's just given a little bit of a push out, given a bit of leeway to the point where he ruins everything. It's hard to know at what point we're at here with Neymar. It's just the overindulgence from the team at the press conference last night as well was kind of borderline embarrassing. But I guess you got to do what you got to do to keep your superstar happy, to keep your man baby happy, as I saw him described on Twitter yesterday.
A reminder, OTB AM is live with screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Last night on the show, Ross Tucker explained his reaction to the news that the UCI have found that Chris Froome has no case to answer anymore for the massive amounts of a substance in his system that he shouldn't have had, and he's now cleared to race in the Tour de France. Have a look at this.
What anti-doping relies on is two things. Number one is testing. Do the authorities have the ability to detect banned substances in athletes? And then if so, do they have the ability to enforce the sanctions based on the testing? Now, we know, and most people who've got any knowledge of the sport know, that testing is very poor. It only works in a very small proportion of athletes. Most athletes who dope will never fail a drugs test as long as they're intelligent. But what this particular instance does is it highlights that even at the back end, there are problems with enforcing the sanctions from testing. And that's not unique to salbutamol, lest there be people who are saying that I'm overreacting to a specific case. In the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen the biological passport challenged in the same way. And when the legal challenge is strong enough, it breaks. There was a case of an Irish sprinter called Stephen Colbert, and the only reason he didn't break anti-doping, or in his case EPO, is because he didn't have the money to do it. And so he eventually took his ban and retired. But his was a case where it was a test for EPO. Some experts said that it was a positive test. Some experts said that it wasn't positive. And they were split. And had he pursued that, I feel that he would have undermined the EPO testing in the same way that this undermined salbutamol. So we have seen in the last decade a number of instances where the anti-doping process is much less robust than people would like it to be. And that's after testing. This is actually on the legal side of it. And so I think that this Froome decision today is a giant leap in the direction that anti-doping was already going, which is the direction of basically no credibility. People may not have seen that we were on that path, but we were. Classic example, by the way, is how often we debate, what is the scientific evidence that drug X works? Well, there isn't any. So why is it banned? So that's one example. But we were on this path, and this decision today is a giant leap in the direction of much less, to the point of zero credibility for anti-doping. I think it's a very damaging day for the concept of anti-doping.
Yeah, so that is Ross Tucker speaking last night with Joe. Let's try and add a bit more to the story this morning, and we've got Barry Ryan with us to try and put some extra context on this, really in the context of the fact that the race is about to start. Barry, good morning to you. The Tour de France organisers themselves have now obviously backed away from their own intention to keep Froome from the race.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that emerged on Sunday morning in Le Mans, that the tour organisers were trying to invoke this sort of clause whereby they could bar Froome from racing because he was bringing cycling into disrepute. It now seems that they started that process 3 weeks ago, and in reality, I think they were doing it because they just wanted to force a decision from the UCI and WADA one way or another before the Tour de France began. And to my understanding, ASO's, that's the Tour de France organizer, their news of this attempt to bar Froome from competing was leaked to Le Mans, or they informed Le Mans on Sunday. I think at that point they already knew that Froome was going to be cleared by the UCI and WADA Monday morning, and they wanted to get ahead of the story and sort of, as if almost wash their hands of the decision in a way.
That's pretty interesting. It seems to me like there's a massive power struggle going on here between the various stakeholders to actually try and establish who is in charge. Floyd Landis has been pointing out that there's symmetries between the timings from when he was banned and from the amount of time from when the UCI eventually cleared Chris Froome to race in the race as well. Is there a massive tectonic political plates shifting here as well, that Froome is being used somehow as a pawn between the UCI and the tour organizer?
I think he's been using them as pawns, I would say, and with the financial backing and clout that he and Sky have. But certainly, yeah, I mean, there is this complex relationship, that has existed in cycling for years, whereby the biggest, one event in the sport, Tour de France, is bigger, economically and in every other way than the rest of the sport put together, in a sense. So there has always existed this tension between Tour de France organisation and the UCI that might not necessarily exist in a lot of other sports. But, if you want to put it that way, between the UCI and the Tour de France organisers has reduced considerably in the last year since this guy, David Lepartien, became president of the UCI. He would have been perceived very much as an ASO man, as being very close to the Tour de France's interests. So, I think what it came down to here was that, maybe the big stakeholders in this, that is ASO, the UCI, WADA, and Sky and Froome, when it came down to it, they all reached what was, they probably felt for themselves, the least worst decision, which was, I think it's the worst possible decision for cycling, just because the process wasn't respected in the way in which Froome was cleared. But for these stakeholders and their overlapping interests, this seems to be where they've landed at.
Can we just go back to one thing you said? Sorry. The ASO, the organisers of the Tour de France, knew that Chris Froome was going to be cleared, and yet they still instigated proceedings to ban him.
No, sorry. What I'm saying is, this is just going around the timeline of what Christian Prudhomme, who is the Tour de France director, what he said yesterday. It seems that in early June, the ASO were concerned that this case wasn't going to be resolved before the Tour. So they, at that point, 3 weeks ago, began this process of attempting to prohibit Froome from participating in the Tour. In that, in turn, seems to have accelerated the justice process, you would call it that, of the UCI's anti-doping tribunal. And they, arrived. It seems that they arrived at their decision on June 28th. So that was obviously before this weekend. News of ASO's attempt to block Froome from participating in the Tour entered the public domain on Sunday, and I think that was essentially the Tour de France organisation saying, "Well, listen, we tried to, we tried to put our stamp on this, or to make some effort to they essentially wanted to get ahead of the story." I think if it had been that Froome had been cleared last week and ASO hadn't, or Froome had been cleared today or yesterday, and it had seemed that ASO hadn't really attempted to do anything one way or another to prevent him from racing, it would have been maybe a bad look for ASO, I guess. The
June 28th date that you just mentioned there, who reached their decision on that day? The ASO reached their decision on that day
No, the UCI reached the UCI and WADA. That seems to be my understanding, is that this, the verdict was announced yesterday morning.
But it was reached last Thursday.
But I think it was reached towards the end of last week, yeah.
Okay, so the likelihood is that decision was reached. The Tour organisers found out about that, banned Froome from the race, knowing that it was going to actually ultimately be futile. So it was a completely political move on behalf of the organisers. I guess that's interesting in itself, that they decided that they wanted, for the credibility of the race, to say, we don't really want this guy racing here, but ultimately it's beyond our control.
Yeah, and that's been the case. I mean, again, if a verdict hadn't been reached in a formal verdict in the Froome case, I think there was all this talk that Froome was going to have a hearing and an appeal this week. I think he probably would have been cleared to race by the French Olympic Committee. They, ASO have made attempts in the past to invoke this disrepute clause and prevent riders from competing, and ultimately, if the rider has been insistent on competing, they've managed to compete. If the rider has sort of stepped back and yielded before ASO, they haven't. There was no sign here that Froome or Sky were going to hold their hands up and say, well, listen, if ASO don't want us at the Tour, we're not going to compete.
It seems that the idea of things being beyond any of these parties' control is the exact situation they want to be in, Barry. Like, I think this suits the ASO perfectly, that it was taken out of their hands. It suits the UCI perfectly that WADA were looking after this. And it suits WADA perfectly that they can just say, well, science is the reason why Chris Froome is allowed to ride here, because we don't have the salbutamol test. It's actually quite convenient for them that the salbutamol test isn't where they would like it to be.
Well, it's certainly convenient for ASO and the UCI. It was very telling in the UCI statement that, because, they highlighted, there was WADA, what we were advised by WADA that we weren't going to be able to proceed with this, and it's I'm not sure if it's convenient for WADA because as Ross Tucker said, this calls the what is the passport proceedings. They had the financial clout, the